Monaco Grand Prix on ITV. Fortunes change on the spin of a wheel. Red 3, the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, is the favourite number to hit the jackpot. Let's join our two high rollers, shall we? Martin Brundle, again the Royal Television Society's Sports Pundit of the Year, and Murray Walker. Afternoon, Murray.
Afternoon, Jim. Well, this is Monaco as I remember it, because it's 2 weeks later this year, and just look at that fabulous picture. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, it's hot, hot, hot. There's fantastic tension here, and like the punters at the Monaco casino, I am looking for a miracle here in the very near future. The miracle will be if they all get round that first corner at the bottom left of the map on your screens, to the left of the letter F, because that is the notorious Saint Devant that you are looking at now. Soon 22 cars will be arriving at that in one solid lump, with 800 horsepower propelling each of them. It's a very different grid this year. Michael Schumacher up front for the 25th time in his career, but next to him Jarno Trulli, and behind Jarno Trulli in the second Jordan is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, as we look at His Serene Highness there hearing the Monaco national anthem. So, 77 last week, Prince Rainier, one of the younger fellows as far as I'm concerned. And I was saying I'm looking for that miracle, and they are going to get all round the corner on the first lap, because the tension here is going to be absolutely terrific. It is now, but they need an enormous amount of concentration to last 78 laps of this race. Only 8 cars finished last year. It's tremendously tiring. And as ever, strategy is going to be very, very important. We're expecting only one pit stop. But last year, there was a very late pit stop from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He came in on his 57th lap. And I'm expecting quite a lot of them to come in round about lap 50 on this lap. Agree or disagree?
Well, the optimum is just over half distance. So I think Michael Schumacher will be taking that route. He'll be expecting to get into the first corner first and scamper off into the distance. He can't really two-stop, because you never know when you might get caught out with a pace car situation and your advantage is eroded as you're trundling around behind the pace car. But he'll certainly be able to have a little bit less fuel on board on the start than the others. I would imagine that the Jordans will be running quite heavy, and that could pose a great problem for the two McLaren drivers, who I believe may well have a faster car in race trim than the Jordans. And then there'll be quite a disorderly queue behind them, I'd imagine, Murray.
Yeah, the real problem is the midfield. It's whether people like Jenson Button, who's down at 14th, Mika Salo, Wurtz in front of him, Eddie Irvine, who's in 10th position, even Ralf Schumacher, who's an excellent 9th in the Williams BMW, are going to get round that first corner. Those were the eyes of Jarno Trulli. Here is David Coulthard, third on the grid, and in front of David Coulthard, the Scarlet McLaren of 4 times Monaco Grand Prix winner Michael Schumacher. As I said, it's 78 laps. There is not a seat to be found here. There's not even standing room on the banks just beneath the Royal Palace, which overlook the Rascasse corner and the Anthony No corner. That's turn 17, the last. The banks are solid with people, most of them wearing Ferrari red, because many of them are from Italy, looking for the man you see front left there with his new helmet livery, incidentally. Nearly all red instead of all blue as it used to be in his Benetton and recent Ferrari days. Michael Schumacher with the yellow from the German flag behind. So Michael Schumacher to the right, the yellow Jordan of Jarno Trulli. Behind that is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and away they go on the formation lap. Green lights, there'll soon be those 5 Reds, and when they go out, it'll be the start of the 78th Monaco Grand Prix, one of the most historic races in the calendar, the only real street circuit that is left.
Yes, wouldn't it be nice to see Jaguar and Jordan have a good day today? I really wish they could get some points and tighten that championship up a little bit and turn it around. But you have to say there are three drivers that have had the pace all through the weekend, the two Macca boys and Michael Schumacher. But it was Barron Keller who was fastest this morning, as I know you said earlier, Murray. And I spoke to him and he's really pumped up. He said the car is so much better. But the track conditions now will be totally different to the 9:30 warm-up this morning. We've got a lot of temperature out there. This race is much later this year than normal, and it certainly has meant completely different weather conditions. You could almost always guarantee you'd have one wet day at the Monaco Grand Prix, but this year it's been glorious. The downside of that is a track temperature that's over 40 degrees centigrade, and there was a quick shot of Coulthard sitting on the line there. They were blowing a fan that's normally used to cool the engine at him, and I know the drivers are getting immensely hot inside the cars.
Well, they've exited the unique feature of Monaco, and that is the tunnel underneath the Grand Hotel, which replaced the old, original, much shorter tunnel.
And Dinitz has just left the line here in the Sauber, so he's the best part of a lap behind. Now, he's got to get to the back of the grid before the light procedure starts, otherwise he must go down the pit lane.
Yeah, he won't be able, as they can if they start a bit earlier than that, to be able to take up his original position, which was 19th on the grid. That's where he qualified. He'll have to start from the back. I think he'll be all right, actually, because they're threading their way round the Rascasse now and into turn 16 and 17, the last on the circuit lap.
Yes, on a circuit like this, that's very slow, relatively speaking, just a 90-mile-an-hour average, plus the temperature of the day we've been talking about as Michael Schumacher comes past our commentary box window here to take up his position. You get a lot of heat soak, and it can give you vapour in the fuel system, and that's probably why Dinitz's car wouldn't start.
Well, now, it's going to last about an hour and 40 minutes, this race. They're going to be changing gear about every 2.5 seconds. Just think of that. Michael Schumacher's speed average over his pole position lap was 95 miles an hour around this circuit. Quite amazing.
Yes, and if you remember last year here, the two Ferraris on the right-hand side of the grid, your left, their right, absolutely scamped. And somebody, it's a Benetton, I think, down there, has stalled the engine. So that must be Wirtz, I would imagine, stalled the engine. So that will be a restart situation, Murray. They'll have to restart, and Wirtz will have to stay at the back of the grid.
It's Alexander Wirtz. He's 12th in position. You see the orange lights flashing there. That means the start, which didn't happen, has been aborted, if you follow me. And that will not be at all welcome. They're going to have to do another lap.
Yes, and we've got some very, very hot Formula One cars sitting on the grid now. They were sitting there a good half-minute, a slow lap round. So, as I was talking about, a lot of heat soak now coming up into the engines. That can cause problems.
And I remember vividly the time when Michael Schumacher stalled his Ferrari on the grid and when he was in pole position. So out come the mechanics, out come the trolleys, out come the starter motors, the electric starter motors, and the tension ebbs just a little.
Yes, look, they're putting the fans on the McLaren. They know what they've got to do to get rid of that heat. And the mechanics, having just dragged all of the equipment back to their garage, they've now got to go back. And the restart procedure, Ferrari, of course, they're at the sharp end of the grid, which is at the extreme opposite end to where their garage is. So Ferrari with a big job to do to get back there and sort Michael Schumacher's car out.
I wonder what's going through Michael's mind at the moment, because there is a precedent for this where Schumacher in pole position, as I just said, stalled on the grid and they had to abort the start, and he had to start from the back, as Alexander Wirtz will have to. And Wirtz is not going to be a very popular man on the grid for all the trouble he has caused. He's in enough trouble already. That's the dry ice going into the pods from the Ferrari and the other cars to try and keep those radiators cool, to stop the heat soak or to reduce it to the minimum that Martin was telling you about. Wirtz, as I was just saying, is under duress. He's having a very difficult time to keep his place in the Benetton team, and this won't help him.
Well, what will happen now is that lap they've done will count as part of the race. Obviously, there'll be one less racing lap now, but this is a great chance for us to take a break.
Restart is going to be in 1 minute's time. When I say the restart, I mean of the formation lap.
Yes, 14:08 local time. We think they're preparing Wurtz's spare car in the pits because it seems as if the car was actually smoking. You can see the gap down there. It's gone now where Wurtz's car was. We think it was smoking as he came to the line, engine smoke. So Wurtz, I think, will have to start from the pit lane. No cost to him now. He would have had to start last anyway. So Wurtz will start from the pit lane once the pack has gone.
And remember, it's not going to be a 78-lap race now. It's going to be a 77-lap race. Hand clutches for the majority of the drivers. Some of them are using a full clutch still. Michael Schumacher went back to Fiorano in Italy on Friday when everybody else was having a rest day to practice his starts, to make sure in a situation where they're not allowed to practice starts at Monaco that he would be really ready for it when the lights go out here.
Yes, they look like they're struggling to get Wurtz's car done in time. Obviously set up for Fisichella by the looks of it, and they're significantly different in physical size, Fisichella and Wurtz. They may struggle to get that car ready to join the start.
You're absolutely right. I did my usual check on who's got the spare cars. A lot of the teams here have got 4 cars. McLaren and Ferrari, Jaguar have got 4 cars, and so have Prost, but Benetton have not. And the car is set up for Giancarlo Fisichella, who is much shorter and stockier than the tall, lanky Alexander Wurtz. It normally takes them about 12 minutes to change the car, to change the pedals, to change the seats, to change the safety belts and everything else that they have to do. I think they'll probably be all right. But now you see the pits are being filled up. The pit lane is being filled up because the circuit itself has been vacated.
Well, the Italians call the spare car the muletto, the mule, I guess. But I'm not quite sure why we all call it the T car. I did know that once, and I can't remember now.
You would throw that one at me. It's training. It's the training car.
That's the one,
is it? The training car, good. Martin. Yes.
Sorry to drop that hot potato on you.
I was ready for it, actually, because somebody asked me exactly the same question yesterday. They also asked me why... No, I won't tell you that now. Because they're coming through at the end of the formation lap, the second formation lap, for the start of the 77-lap Monaco Grand Prix of the year 2000 Y2K, with Michael Schumacher in pole position, with Jarno Trulli, who said, and you heard him, I make a good start and I would hope to be leading into the first corner.
Yes, but I think Trulli was nervous in the press conference straight after his front row qualifying yesterday. I thought he was nervous when I spoke to him, and the last thing he needed was a false start, because that's the period of time where it's most difficult to keep yourself under control.
Yeah, and this is Michael Schumacher's 133rd Grand Prix. He has won 39 of them, only 2 less than the great Ayrton Senna, whose points total he has already succeeded beaten to become the 2nd highest in history. And the Monaco Grand Prix is... Go, go, go! Schumacher gets away. Trulli slots in front of David Coulthard, and the grid order is maintained with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 4th position. But Mika Häkkinen is still in 5th position, so there is no change as they climb up to the Hotel de Paris, round Massenet, the left-hander, through Casino Square.
Yes, everybody got away very poorly, and I'm not surprised. The red light was on for so long there. The red light seemed to be forever going out, and I'm sure all the drivers were champing at the bit there. It's unusual. Normally it's just over 3 seconds and it's away. And there's Häkkinen making a good move on Frentzen. Red flag.
Well,
I think the computer is out, Murray. I think that's probably why it's a red flag.
Well,
there's no data come up. They've gone...
Oh, look at that. Well, this is the worst possible thing that could happen at Monaco. First of all, we get an aborted start. Then we get the computer sticking and the race restarted again. Now we've got this kerfuffle, and let's have a look and see what it's the two arrows, you see. That's Jos Verstappen in the orange arrows, who was nerfed from the inside there. Now,
by Button, I think it was Jenson Button gave him a little tap on the back wheel there as they went into Grand Hairpin there. So, but we've got no data on the computer at all as they've gone through the various sectors on this lap, and I suspect there's been some kind of power failure. I can't, certainly the red flag was out long before this little car park.
Well, the whole of Formula One, like the whole of our lives these days, seems to be controlled by computers. The cars trip a computer mechanism as they cross the line so that we all get their times and the gaps in between. And in many ways, the old way was the best, but not here today.
Well, they're going to have to send men out with starters. They can't haul all of those cars off the track. They'll have to switch the cars off. They'll be fried in about a minute, which they've already had much more than parked there at Grand Hotel Hairpin. Nobody got away well. I think everybody was surprised just how long the red light stayed on. Ralph, a reasonable start there, but sort of general chaos. They did well to all get through the first corner, but if they're still down there at the Grand Hairpin, they'll have to switch the engines off, and they can't just crane them off the circuit. They'll have to send men out there with starters, I would have thought.
Well, if Jarno Trulli was a bit nervous, you thought before, Martin, he's going to be even more nervous now. As we look at him sitting in the Jordan in the second position on the grid. Michael Schumacher, of course, has been there, done that, whatever it is in Formula One. And he's a very cool, calm, collected customer anyway. Well, there is the Jordan being... This is the third time that a Jordan has been involved in a real happening this year, because Pedro de la Rosa went into the barrier very heavily this morning.
That looks a bit like an arrows to me, but here's the car park that we were talking about, and they've switched them all off. I had to, as I said, the engines would just melt, and I really think they should allow the mechanics out there to start those cars out.
David Coulthard climbing over the barrier. Yes, I'm sorry, an orange arrows that was being craned off the circuit. And the Arrows team has had a very tough time here altogether, because Verstappen's been off. You can see the blower there pushing cold air, because there's an ice box there as well, pushing cold air into the engine compartment of Schumacher's Ferrari.
Yeah, it's because the overflow system on the radiator system is just like Europa. It'll be a total loss system if they get any expansion, and obviously they can't get that water back in, can't get any water back in. In fact, at this point, if they're declaring a restart, they can't add anything to the car whatsoever, certainly by way of fuel, or change the tyres. But I'm going to be this is an unusual situation, I have to say, but I'm going to be very surprised if they basically make those drivers abandon those cars.
That's Genet's car that you're looking at now, the Minardi of Marc Genet, who's straddling the cockpit. You can see his left leg is out and his foot is on the ground, his right leg is in the cockpit. There's a Prost down there, there's Jenson Button's car, there's the Sauber in the background. Behind the Sauber there's one of the two BARs, and then finally Mazzacane in the second Minardi. News from James Allen.
Yeah, Murray, I'm down here in the pit lane, and there seems to be a lot of confusion. I've talked with Ferrari and McLaren. They have no idea why this race was stopped before the incident at the Lowe's hairpin. I'm now with Eddie Jordan. Eddie, can you shed any light on this?
Well, it has to be that incident, because I can't believe that that incident wasn't already reported back. There's no other reason for it, and you know, perhaps in hindsight it looks as if there's no way the race could have continued. The place is completely blocked, and that's the only reason that I can possibly imagine as to why it was stopped.
But the way we were looking at it, the red flags were up before the accident happened, Eddie.
I'm sure. I think that's just a matter of I think if you actually got your time switch out and had a look back and replayed the action, you'll find them feeling there's absolutely no reason for the race to be stopped, and that's why they would have done it.
So let's talk a little bit about nerves now, Eddie, because your driver's on the front row, you've got another one on the second row of the grid. Obviously you're pretty keyed up before the start. You've had an aborted start and now a second restart. How are they feeling right now?
Well, I can only imagine that they are very uptight, just want get this thing started, because it's not helping anyone, it's not helping the viewers, it's certainly not helping us here in the pits, so you can imagine what it's doing to the drivers. It's also not helping the engines. The ambient here is extremely high, and there is no no air flowing around the circuit, and what's actually happening is that you get this air that's very, very weak and very hard for the drivers. The adrenaline is going to play a big part in this race, and the fitness of the drivers is going to be key.
Okay, we're looking at a replay of this incident. It's obviously a huge blockage. Back to you, Murray.
Well, you can see what happened there. Jenson Button, the right-hand wheel, front wheel of Jenson Button's Williams, went in between the two wheels, left-hand side of Pedro de la Rosa's Arrows. I'm right opposite now, Jos Verstappen's Arrows, which is 15th on the grid. Pedro de la Rosa was 16th on the grid, and his car isn't here. You've seen it craned off. So if they've got the third Arrows ready, and remember it was virtually destroyed this morning and they've got no replacement, they haven't got 4 cars here. There he is running in. He will have to turn out in the car that's been rebuilt since this morning, and that is Jenson Button running in. So Williams have got 4 cars here.
I think Eddie Jordan was probably right. I think the first we saw of that incident was as a replay and not real time. And there was certainly no red flags hanging out at Grand Hairpin before as they had that incident on the corner there, so that could well have been the red flag situation. But there certainly was no computer information up here, and we get the same stuff as the teams by and large. And also, I'm very surprised that red light was on so long on the grid. So maybe there's other problems as well. And there's the drivers all having to scamper back. We're going to find out what's happening. We'll be back very shortly.
Le long donc des pieds pour venir retrouver donc, la grille de départ pour 4 pilotes. Il y a la tribu de Gare qui va certainement encourager tous ces pilotes.
È un destino, è un gran premio podistico per il povero Villeneuve.
And you're back with us. That they're still recovering the Arrows there. Many of the drivers have been running back to the pits, as you saw just as you were leaving us. Now this is covered under Article 156 of the regulations. There's 3 types of race stoppage really, and this is case A. Less than 2 full laps have been completed, and if the race can be restarted, then the following applies. The original start shall be deemed null and void. The length of the restarted race will be the full original race distance. Drivers who are eligible to take part in that race can start either in their race car or their T car. And this is an interesting one, any driver who was forced to start from the back of the grid or the pit lane during the original start may start from his original grid position, which puts Wirtz back on the grid effectively. And well, it goes on. There's more details.
Funny sort of justice.
Yeah, but you've got to have rules. You've got to have a procedure. I mean, it all looks a bit of a fiasco at the moment, but there is a way of channeling this back in to try to become a motor race. But it's certainly struggling at the moment, isn't it?
Here they are running back, and in the lead is Pedro Diniz. Behind him is Ricardo Zonta.
And he's going up the inside, look.
Yeah, and also out there are Nick Heidfeld, the Prost driver. Jenson Button is already home. Pedro Diniz, as you see, is across the track into the crowd. And now they've got to get back into the pit lane. David Coulthard was out of his car very quickly indeed and taken his helmet off to cool down, no doubt. As Alexander Wurz there in the spare Benetton, I expect, is waiting ready to come out of the pit lane to start from his original position, having aborted the first one. And that's 12th position. Louise Goodman.
Down with James Robinson down at Williams. James, did Jenson say anything to you after that incident?
No, he didn't. Obviously, he was straight out of the car from what we could see, and he's just trying to get back. Obviously, he's just got in a spare car, but the pit lane technically is closed, so we're going to see if we can get him out or not. Probably won't.
Bit of a tricky situation for him to have to deal with for such an inexperienced driver. Do you think this is going to affect him? Is it going to rattle him?
Have to wait and see.
Thanks, James.
I don't think it's going to rattle him. He's the most mature, calm, laid-back chap of 20 years old that I've ever met in my life. Most of the situations that Jenson is coming up against now are new to him because this is very much his first season in Formula One, and a very distinguished season it's been so far. This is only his 7th Grand Prix, and he has scored in 2 of them. And this is his first street race in Formula One, and he's been performing extremely well already. He's only starting 14th on the grid, admittedly, out of 22, but he had all sorts of problems, as did most of them, because congestion is one of the big problems at Monaco. You've heard us talking about how difficult it is to get past cars, and James Allen is there in the pits.
Situations like this, Murray, sometimes give rise to the funniest little things. All the sort of glamour and the glitz and the build-up that we always have at the build-up to the Grand Prix. And now we've had an aborted start. And one of the funniest things I've seen for a long time, there's one portable toilet at the end of the pit lane. Michael Schumacher decided immediately upon rejoining the grid he wanted to go to it. And shortly afterwards, Mika Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher arrived and had to stand in an orderly queue while Michael sped to Penny, and then they all came back out again. It's a very, very strange day down here in the pits.
So the Germans got to the loo as well, first of all. And David Coulthard is sitting as Scotland's representative in the McLaren. He's taking care of that problem, I presume.
Yes, Coulthard wiping his face. Obviously, the beads of sweat, they come down and they're salty, obviously, as you all know, and get in your eyes, and it's the last thing you need when you're driving around here. But so this, I sort of tend to disagree with you, Murray, that Jenson won't be fazed by this. This is a 3rd start for a difficult Grand Prix. He's caused one of the restarts with tripping over the arrows, but it's so easy to do down there in that hairpin. And a little bit of massage to the neck there of one of the Prost drivers.
It's Nick. I think it looks like John Alesi from the bulky build. And it looks to me as though he's got a problem, and Alesi is starting 7th on the grid.
That's just a bit of relaxation stuff,
I
think, isn't
it is, John Alesi. Incidentally, it gives me the opportunity to say, as I said in qualifying yesterday, that there's a pretty fraught situation at the Prost organisation because their technical chief, Alan Jenkins, has left, and the entente cordiale is not at all cordial. There's a very fraught atmosphere there. But to their credit, as a result of, ironically, something that Alan Jenkins found out in the aerodynamics area, the Prost is going very much better here than it has in the past. And Alesi has benefited that, 7th on the grid.
Yes, Alesi going extremely well.
Jarno Trulli, 2nd on the grid. He's already started this race, or thought he'd started it in the formation lap 1, formation lap 2. 3rd time lucky, we hope. The race restarting in 5 minutes' time, if all goes well.
Yes, 31 minutes past the hour, the race will start, and it's a good chance for us to take another break so you can see more racing action later on.
Au départ donc de cette 10e épreuve de la saison, les Germains repérés, et nous sommes à la 653e épreuve du championnat du monde depuis 1950. Alors, puisque nous avons effectué moins de 2 tours à chaque départ, la distance donc prévue de 78 tours est observée. C'est donc pour la distance de...
The third formation lap will be starting in about 3 minutes' time. And one team in particular then is going to be extremely worried, and that is the Jaguar team, who have had a lot of start problems due to clutch problems in previous Grand Prix. They've taken off twice already this afternoon. Now they're going to have to do it a third time, but it's going to be pretty tough on everybody.
It certainly is. The regulations are absolutely clear that the length of the restarted race will be the full original race distance. It certainly used to be the case where you counted that false start lap, but we're in a red flag situation. We're not in a safety car situation. Obviously there was no point. You saw for yourselves the safety car itself got blocked behind the little traffic jam. But just to remind you, this race restarts, the restart procedure is at 31 minutes past the hour.
And it is now 29 minutes past the hour. 29 minutes past 2 in Monaco. 29 minutes past 1 in Great Britain, 29 minutes past something else in the many other parts of the world, India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, that are listening to us at the present moment, not to mention Malaysia, which we're looking forward to going to for the last Grand Prix of the year. Well, the spectators, and there are thousands and thousands, must be a record crowd here at Monaco. I have never seen the place as full as it is now. I've been coming here for a good few years. They've already had 2 lots of excitement, and they're about to get a third. We're coming up to 30 minutes past the hour. 1 minute to go to the start of the third formation lap. And please, everybody, join me in keeping your fingers crossed. We all desperately want to get this Monaco Grand Prix, the 58th of these great street races, on the road, quite literally.
The last time I can remember 3 starts to a Grand Prix, I caused both the restarts in 1987. Austria 87. I had a coming together with Eddie Cheever on the first one and a suspension failure on the second one. But
I was saying to myself, what a hooligan that fellow Brundle is.
I can't imagine what you used to say about me, Murray, when I couldn't hear you when I was down on the track. I dread to think.
No, that was a very tricky one. Well, let's hope it doesn't happen again. 14, 30, 34, 35, 36, 37. We're coming up to 31 when Michael Schumacher will let in the hand clutch, and away will go the Ferrari to lead the rest round.
Well, if you thought it looked a bit skinny down the far end of the grid there, that's because we're expecting Wirtz and Button at least to be starting from the pit lane, and Denitz probably not even in the race at all.
Because we've seen his car parked down at the station hairpin. Away goes Schumacher. Well, he's had some practice starts here today to add to those he's had in Fiorano on Friday.
Yes, I think if Michael starts like that for the real thing, he'll be in 4th place by the first corner, but obviously he will not. He just wanted to get some temperature and into those rear tires. It's your best chance when you're pulling away to actually generate some temperature. And we think De La Rosa is also not starting the race.
So let's remind ourselves what did happen when we thought the race had started. Michael Schumacher kept his first place as he went into Saint-Devote. Jarno Trulli did make a good start, but not as good as Schumacher. He was in 2nd place. David Coulthard did not lose a place, nor did Frentzen, and Mika Häkkinen was still in 5th place. So some of them, and that's Alexander Wirtz in the Benetton, the man who caused all the trouble in the first place, and he is going to be starting from the pit lane. That means to say that he will have to wait until all the other 21 cars and drivers have passed him before he can accelerate away up towards Saint-Devote. This is the famous chicane outside the tunnel. It's where Wirtz went off a couple of years ago. We got that fantastic shot of his nose of the Benetton harpooning the bales between him and the Armco barrier. There is Barrichello, there is Alesi, there is Fisichella, that is Ralf Schumacher. Eddie Irvine is starting 10th on the grid. His teammate Johnny Herbert will be 11th. They're coming down to the Rascasse underneath the red bridge. Then there's a little curving right. That's Jenson Button sitting. He's going to be starting from the pit lane as well. You heard what James Robertson said to Louise Goodman, and the mechanics finally tightened down the side pod on Jenson Button's Williams BMW as Michael Schumacher. Now, fingers crossed, everybody. Fingers crossed. We must get the Monaco Grand Prix away this third time. Schumacher pole position, Jarno Trulli second on the grid. The silver and black McLaren behind Schumacher is David Coulthard.
Yes, and these clutches are just about the size of your fist now on a Formula One car. They're not really designed for a lot of restarts. This is putting them absolutely on the limit.
1 light, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and... Come on, out! Go! Schumacher good again! Trulli good again! And Frentzen slots in front of Häkkinen, so the grid positions have been maintained. Are they going to get round Sandervot? Yes, I think they are. Schumacher leads. Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Mika Häkkinen into Massenet, into the Casino Square. Now they're coming up to the point where we had problems at the station hairpin. They turn into the Mirabeau, drop down towards the station hairpin, and this is it.
Yes, Ralf Schumacher, the main mover there. Ralf Schumacher getting a good start for the second time, and I think he has catapulted past John Alesi. Barrichello there behind Alesi, so Barrichello a poor start.
Yeah, Barrichello only qualified 6th on the grid. He's been passed by the mercurial John Alesi in the frost. Up into 6th position, a potential points position, but we've still got 77 laps and a bit to go as they come down to the chicane for the first time with Michael Schumacher in the lead. Jarno Trulli is still there. David Coulthard treading on his gearbox, and they stream through. Absolutely critical this into the swimming pool section. They approach it at some 100 miles an hour. And this is the Rascasse, and look at the gap already between Schumacher and Trulli.
Yes, critical there for Michael Schumacher. He needed Jarno Trulli to get away in front of Coulthard. That's going to give Schumacher such a breathing space, unless Coulthard can do something about Trulli in these early laps. Otherwise, you just settle into a rhythm. But he's got to take such a risk to get past him. He needs the championship points, but he also needs to try and win this motor race. And he's got to keep some pressure on Michael Schumacher if he can. And look at the lead Schumacher's got.
Yeah, the worry man is Mika Häkkinen. Worry because he's worried. He's in 5th position. He did not make up any places at the start. Look, he's still locked in behind the Heinz-Harald Frentzen as Schumacher leads and is increasing the gap between himself and Jarno Trulli. And Mika Häkkinen is looking all the time as he comes down to the station hairpin for a way round Heinz-Harald Frentzen as...
And if he does that too many times, he'll lose his nose cone, Murray, and then he'll be a half a minute behind when he stops to have that change, or worse still, lose a front wishbone. So Häkkinen there having a bit of a wild stab up the inside of Frentzen having nothing of it into the hairpin there, and it's so difficult. You've got to be so focused on your piece of road that staring in your mirrors through there, watching out for people trying to overtake you, is just not on the agenda.
And Ralf Schumacher is in 6th position. Jenson Button, who started in the pit lane, is in 19th position. And there is Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, who has been passed by his teammate Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert was 11th on the grid behind Irvine. He's now 10th in the race ahead of Eddie Irvine. So, there is Trulli, there is Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher is disappearing from sight as they go through. But it's very, very close behind them. Michael Schumacher, as Häkkinen is looking again, and Frentzen coming up towards Sandervot. But the German Heinz-Harald Frentzen and the Jordan Mugen, which is going so well here, knows this course very well indeed. He lives in Monaco, as does Mika Häkkinen, and he knows that if he places his car correctly, it's going to be virtually impossible for the Finn to get by. And now Mika Häkkinen is 5 seconds behind Schumacher.
Yes, possibly Häkkinen's car's a little bit lighter to try and get him through the traffic early on. But one thing's for sure, he's certainly got a faster car and he can't do anything with it at the moment. I was wrong about Denitz not starting. He's in 14th place. But Button and Wirtz did start from the pit lane, then 18th and 19th, as you've already said, Murray, and De La Rosa is the only one actually not in the race. So 21 runners at the moment.
Through the tunnel, into the chicane, there is Ralf Schumacher. And you can see the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen, and it's not very much. As Jean Alesi follows Schumacher in 7th position. ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who has lost 2 places. Very disappointing for the Ferrari driver, because he qualified in 6th place. He was fastest in this morning's warm-up, declared himself happy with the handling and the balance of the Ferrari, but never, in spite of that, he has lost 2 places in this race. And losing them is not too difficult. Getting them back is mighty difficult.
Yes, just to remind you why Häkkinen is down there. He had a poor first run in qualifying, and then traffic really for the next 2, and a fairly mediocre last effort, still struggling a little bit with traffic. So Häkkinen lucky in a way to qualify 5th, but it's compromised his afternoon. And look, Michael Schumacher, as we thought, scampering away, a well over 3.5-second lead already.
And remember, Michael Schumacher's already won 4 of the 6 races this year, with the declared objective of taking Ferrari back to the top in terms of winning the Drivers' Championship, which they have not done since Jody Scheckter did so for them in 1979. It's been a long, long haul, and there's news from James Allen.
Yes, this is just what McLaren feared, not least because they got Jarno Trulli in front of them, but more importantly, he's the only one of the leading gaggle that's on the super soft tyres. And what we've seen throughout the weekend is that they go off, they understeer terribly between the 2nd and the 7th laps of running. So this is going to mean that Trulli's going to hold them up even more, while Schumacher is able to pull away. It's exactly what McLaren didn't want for that reason.
You can see how close it is, and here are the top 10 on lap 4 out of 78. Schumacher leading by 3.5 seconds. Jarno Trulli is 2nd, half a second ahead of David Coulthard. And there they are. 4th is Frentzen, 5th is Häkkinen, 6th is Ralf Schumacher, 7th is Jean Alesi, 8th is Rubens Barrichello, 9th is Fisichella, Johnny Herbert is 10th, and Eddie Irvine in the 2nd Jaguar is in 11th position. Jenson Button is still down in 19th position. Coming up the hill towards us, it's Frentzen and Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, and then Barrichello. Here is Michael Schumacher, 4 times a winner at Monaco.
Yes, and his car's been so reliable. When you think back, other than that brake problem in Silverstone last year, I think the last time Michael Schumacher's car failed him and had any kind of engine blow-up was in Melbourne 1998. So we know he's got a super reliable car. We also know that Jordans tend to run a very big fuel tank, and they tend to run very long. So they're sitting quite pretty at the moment. Häkkinen, if anything, just falling slightly away from Frentzen. Don't know if he made a mistake on the last lap, but Häkkinen not exactly carrying Frentzen. He's 9/10 of a second down.
Well, Frentzen was 4th last year, and he came in on lap 57. Here he is coming towards us. Häkkinen can do nothing about him, nor can Ralf Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello, Fisichella, Johnny Herbert you just saw coming towards us in the Jaguar, and we're on lap 5, still an enormous distance to go. The crowd has settled down. It's very hot indeed. As I talk to you, the track temperature remains at 40 degrees as the leaders round the Rascasse. Now, Schumacher is putting up fastest lap after fastest lap. He's just gone round in 1 minute 24.3. The fastest lap last year was 2 laps quicker. Mika Häkkinen.
Dream scenario for Michael. He took 1.5 seconds out of the opposition on the last lap, 2 seconds out of Frentzen. So Michael with a track to himself, the car working beautifully. He's just enjoying himself. He, as far as he's concerned, there's nobody else around this afternoon. It's a private test at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not as though he is a new boy. Far from it. He made his first sparkling appearance in 1991 at the Belgian Grand Prix, driving for Eddie Jordan. That lasted 1 race before he was snaffled by Benetton. So he's very much a veteran now, and 4 times the winner here.
Well, Coulthard's got to get closer than that to have any chance of overtaking Trulli, but then he's really got 2.5 opportunities. One's coming out of the tunnel into the new chicane. The other is after the casino down into Mirabeau. If Trulli's got to wear Trulli down, or you can have a very wild stab up the inside into Grand Hairpin, but there's a good 50-50 chance that one will end in tears.
Michael Schumacher nearly 6 seconds ahead of the yellow Jordan there of Jarno Trulli. You can see how close David Coulthard is, but then Frentzen is 3.5 seconds behind Coulthard's McLaren. Out of the Antonino corner, up towards Sandervoort they come. Frentzen has got Häkkinen snapping at his gearbox, but the Finn can do nothing about it. Ralf Schumacher coming up the hill towards us in the BMW is in 6th position. But this race is a long, long way from being finished. We're on lap 7 now, another 71 laps to go.
Yes, Coulthard wasn't able to run this car in the warm-up. It failed, so he had to run in the T car, and he was still making adjustments to it on the grid, even after the reconnaissance laps to go round to the grid. So it seems to be working well, but obviously he can't move with the Jordan in front of him.
Now, this is the sort of drive I've been waiting for a long time to see Jarno Trulli have the opportunity to have. He was absolutely brilliant in karts. He went straight from karts to Formula 3, and he was the German Formula 3 champion, which may seem a bit odd for an Italian, but that was the series he was driving, and there's Michael Schumacher leading. And Jarno Trulli won the German championship and then went up to the Minardi team. He actually led the Austrian Grand Prix 3 years ago in one of his first drives for the Prost team. And now he's in a car that can at minimum give him second position if he stays where he is. But I'm also asking myself, how much longer can the two Ferraris go on being as reliable as they have been? As you heard from Martin, it's over 30 races since Michael Schumacher went out with any kind of a mechanical function.
Yes, now McLaren have to get their thinking caps on, because it's clear, whilst they've got faster cars than the Jordans at this stage of the race, they have not got enough extra speed to just breeze past them. So now what they're going to have to do is change their strategy and find a gap in the back markers. And this is assuming the Jordan drivers don't make a mistake, but they're both young, strong and very fit. So they're going to have to find a gap in the traffic where they can stop their man early, give him some free air, and see if they can leapfrog the Jordans that way, because, as I said, unless Coulthard can pressurise Trulli into some kind of error, he's not got enough traction or straight line speed to simply breeze past.
Which is the sort of thing that happened in the Ferrari team last year. They finished first and second last year. Michael Schumacher won in 1999. His teammate Eddie Irvine was second. And it was largely thanks to the fact that Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical chief, changed Eddie Irvine's strategy during the race, and he was the only one of the top 6 who stopped twice, because he came in as late as lap 56, and as a result of that, and the fact that Mika Häkkinen had a problem at the Mirabeau and stopped and had to get back onto the track again, Eddie Irvine finished in second position. So there is the Jordan, followed by the McLaren, and that is Ralf Schumacher. So Frentzen and Häkkinen up the hill towards the Macedon.
Yes, yet another new fastest lap of the race as Michael Schumacher extends his lead, as you saw, to 8.4 seconds after just 8 laps. That means he's going to be, if the McLarens can't spring it, means Michael's going to be, assuming he's on a one-stopper, which I'd be very surprised if he's not, then he's going to be cruising up behind this lot at some point later in the afternoon.
Well, I worked it out earlier on that we could expect the leader, who I was expected to be Michael Schumacher, to lap the last man, who at the present moment is Nick Heidfeld, after about 21 laps. Now, we're on lap 8 at the present moment. There was roughly a 4-second gap between the fastest and the slowest in the warm-up, the half-hour warm-up this morning. And now you can see that Michael Schumacher is carving his way through the field. Just the one retirement so far, Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows, who actually did not get away.
You're on board with David Coulthard. You're running third in this Grand Prix this afternoon. And as you can see, all he's got is a face full of Jordan rear wing. And what would be so easy for Coulthard to do is, on a corner like he's just gone round, just to clump the barrier, just turn in a fraction too early while you're slightly unsighted, and it'll just spin you around and pendulum around, and it's so easy to do when you're focused on the car ahead of you.
And this is a perfect indication of the fact that it is of paramount importance to qualify well at Monaco. If you qualify well and get a good start, you get the situation that we've got now, because the pole position man is leading. The man who was second on the grid is second. The man who was third on the grid is third. The man who was fourth on the grid, and it's him, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, is fourth, and Mika Häkkinen is fifth, as we ride with David Coulthard chasing Jarno Trulli into the Portier, where Senna went off in 1988, into the tunnel and through the tunnel, and they go through this tunnel and exit in at over 160, building up to 180 miles an hour, as Jos Verstappen exits the tunnel and goes across the chicane.
Yes, I was just about to say, amazingly, from the middle of the pack, Jos Verstappen's just done the fastest time of anybody in the race through the midsection. Now I know why. He basically leapt across the chicane. He may or may not get penalised. The stewards will have a look and see if he got some kind of advantage, either made a place or retained a place by doing that, and I don't think Verstappen will have a problem on that one.
No, I don't think so. He was 2 seconds ahead of Deniz in the Sauber, who is in 14th position. So, lap 11, we're exactly 1/7 of the way through the Monaco Grand Prix. Schumacher's now leading by nearly 11 seconds with another fastest lap. Lap after lap, Michael Schumacher is extending his lead over Jarno Trulli. There is the Jordan, followed by David Coulthard's McLaren. Then there is a gap of 3 seconds before the Frentzen and Hakkinen battle arrives, followed by Ralf Schumacher, who's a second behind Hakkinen. Alesi is still 7th, Barrichello is still 8th, Fisichella 9th, Johnny Herbert is still ahead of Eddie Irvine, and Herbert is 10th.
Yes, Michael Schumacher's done a new fastest lap for the last 6 laps of this motor race. We all need Coulthard to pass that Jordan, if only to give us a race this afternoon, because Michael's just going to be running and hiding.
Well, this is a very, very long World Championship. This is race 7. There are 17 races in the championship. And remember what happened to Michael Schumacher at the British Grand Prix last year, when he had just lost the leadership of the World Championship to Mika Hakkinen. But at the present moment, Schumacher is running away with it. He's 18 points ahead of Mika Hakkinen, and Schumacher is on a possible 10 World Championship points at the moment. Hakkinen is on a possible 2 World Championship points at the moment. So if things stay as they are, and I don't suppose for a moment they will, Schumacher would be extending his lead over Mika Hakkinen by a further 8 points. And it would be looking very grim indeed. Now that is Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine just deciding he's not going to make the chicane, and I don't think he would suffer. I don't think Verstappen's going to do it, and I don't think Irvine will either.
Yes, it's very easy to take that decision to scamper across that no man's land. There should be big spikes in there that stops him going across it. It's too easy to take the soft option there. Yeah,
the lines, those red and white lines at the chicane, not at the hairpin there, but at the chicane, are just painted on the ground. There was a time when they actually had a raised wooden structure, and if you thumped that, you were in trouble with a puncture or a broken wheel or broken suspension. But they thought better of it. They just painted the lines on the track, and as you've heard from Martin, if you cross the chicane, you benefit, that is, you pass a driver, you will be penalised. You can see they're running wide there quite deliberately, but if you just nip across and you don't gain from it, you are not penalised.
Yes, but if they perceive that you would have lost a place because of your misdemeanour, they nailed a Formula 3000 driver yesterday for he didn't gain a place, but surely he'd made a mistake and managed to keep his place somehow, so he got a 10-second stop and go penalty, which with a 60 km/h, 40 miles per hour speed limit down the never-ending pit lane here is quite a penalty indeed.
And you're certainly not encouraged to do it regularly. So Mika Hakkinen will be a gigantically frustrated man. He's now 17 seconds behind his World Championship rival, Michael Schumacher, tucked in behind Frentzen, with Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, confidently holding on to that 6th position and a points position. Now, where is Jenson Button in the other Williams? The answer is he's still in 19th position. Because although he's riding underneath the rear wing of Gaston Mazzucato's Minardi, and this is the first time too that the Argentine driver has driven at Monaco, Mazzucati is not letting Button through, and as I said earlier on, if you don't get some help from the driver in front, it's going to be virtually impossible to get past. So why, you may say, do they hold a motor race at a place like this if you cannot pass? Well, in fact, most of the Grand Prix circuits these days are very difficult to pass on. The performance of the cars is similar. They're all top drivers, and the big problem is an aerodynamic one.
Yes, but you've got to have different styles of racetrack. You can't, I mean, in the ideal world of safety and all of that sort of thing, you'd end up with a long straight and all the spectators 500 metres away looking through binoculars. You've got to have different types of circuit, test the drivers. The qualifying here plays a much bigger part than at normal racetracks, but it's all part of a very special weekend, a very specific kind of racetrack, and it should be in the calendar, no doubt about that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Magic. Now, we are not seeing much of Michael Schumacher because he is out on his own so much. He's 12 seconds ahead now. He's just done yet another fastest lap. He's streaking away with this race. His fastest lap, which he has just done, is 1 minute 23.6, which is 1.2 seconds, 1.4 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap last year. As a matter of interest, Michael Schumacher has the lap record here. It's as long ago as 1994 in the Benetton, which is a 3.5-litre engine device, and they're 3 litres these days. And that was 1:21, so he's about 2.5 seconds slower than his own all-time lap record as Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher go through the chicane on lap 14 out of 78.
Yes, that was back in the days, though, Michael's fastest time when they had wide, uncut
Big
slicks.
boots.
So, and around a circuit like this, it makes a tremendous amount of difference.
So the swimming pool section, and Fisichella is putting on a bit of a charge now. He is in 9th position, tucked up behind Rubens Barrichello. Now Barrichello is 8th in the Ferrari, cannot get past Alesi's Prost, who cannot get past Schumacher's Williams, who cannot get past Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, and Mika Häkkinen is in 5th position. Fisichella closing up right on the rear wing of Barrichello's Ferrari.
I can't help but watch Häkkinen and think he's having another one of those days where he doesn't seem that interested. It's just a feeling you get on the season so far in some respects, and Mika, he just doesn't look really on it in his normal way there. He's falling away again from the back of Frentzen. In a way, though, I think that's what Coulthard should maybe do. Just back off a little bit, cool his tyres down, and come back and have another run at Trulli and try and distract him in that way. I think now they've settled into a rhythm, you just get in a trance following the car in front of you. You should really, I think if he just backs off a bit, cools the tyres, but then, you know, if they come up against back markers or Trulli makes a mistake, then he wouldn't be in a position to maximise on it. So yeah, it's a difficult decision.
And it's you can understand that the McLaren people are not bringing Coulthard in spite of the fact that he can't get past Trulli in front of him, because we're only on lap 16, and even if he was on a one-stop strategy and they decided to change it to 2, it would mean he'd be going out with a terrific fuel load and coming back into the race during traffic.
Well, yes, they're nowhere near the window for stopping. I would have thought the window to stop would be somewhere 38, 40 laps into the race through to 55, 56. So until we get, I would have thought, at least into the 40s, McLaren are hamstrung on any kind of tactics they can play.
Now, Schumacher knows that, Ferrari know that, McLaren know that, but they can do nothing about it. And Jordan will not be at all unhappy with this situation. Jordan have not been performing to their satisfaction this season so far. They were 3rd in the championship last year behind Ferrari and McLaren. This year they're down in 5th position, but behind Benetton. But if they stay where they are now, they will be moving up and probably getting past Williams, who are currently an unexpected 3rd.
I asked Trulli a question on the start line that I asked very specifically, did he think it would be more physically or mentally demanding? And he said both. I think he is one of the very fittest drivers physically in Formula One, but I wonder if he was ready to take this sort of pressure. But 3 restarts and 17 on their 17th lap of the race, and Trulli shows no sign of bending whatsoever, but it's a long afternoon ahead of him.
He is gigantically fit. I mean, he's taking part in the upcoming New York Marathon. That's how fit he is. And he's also very fit mentally. I think we tend to lose sight of how long these drivers have all been racing in some kind of motorsport. For instance, Ralf Schumacher drove in karts for 14 years before he came up to Formula 3, and Ralf Schumacher's only 24 years old, and Jarno Trulli will be in much the same situation. Now we're looking at the McLaren chasing the Jordan.
Yes, now Trulli is very slow at the moment. He was 1.6 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher on the last lap, and that's allowing the pack, look, to catch them at well over a second a lap. Now Coulthard's going to get a hurry-up call, because he's soon going to have Frentzen, Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher on his tail, and it's because Trulli just does not appear to have the pace of the others at this stage of the race.
with Michael Schumacher leading on lap 17 by 17 seconds. So he's been pulling away at the rate of a second a lap. And he's soon going to be in a situation where he can come in, stop, take on fuel and new tyres and get out still in the lead, which is a racing driver's dream of home. Michael Schumacher then 17 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who's got David Coulthard right behind him. There he is, David Coulthard. Frentzen is now catching David Coulthard. There is the Jordan, and behind him is Mika Häkkinen. So things are closing up nicely. And Mika Häkkinen is putting on a tremendous charge in 5th position. He's really pressuring Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Here he is, there is Frentzen now. There is Mika Häkkinen. They're going round the Massenet. So Jordan leads McLaren, Ferrari leads the race, and Ralf Schumacher is 6th.
Yes, it looks like they've all sort of had a meeting and said, how can we make this as easy as possible for Ferrari to win this race, because it's just playing so much into Michael Schumacher's hands. He'll be grinning from ear to ear in the cockpit of the Ferrari at the moment. But as you've said before many times, Murray, anything can happen, and it often does.
Yeah, and into the pits comes the high wing Williams of Jenson Button from 21st position. So it looks as though he's going to be a retirement. He was 19th. And yeah, this is Button going out of the race. And that's a comparatively new experience for Jenson Button too. He failed to finish in Australia, and he failed to finish in Imola. And he's going to fail to finish from his first Monaco Grand Prix. What the problem was, I obviously don't know. So we now have 2 retirements on lap 19. The first De La Rosa in the Arrows, the second Jenson Button in the Williams. That leaves 20 drivers. Nobody has been lapped yet. Nick Heidfeld in the Prost is 20th and last of the runners at the present moment. And it is Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Häkkinen.
It's a great shame for Jenson Button. Now, there's a lot of speculation, which we've covered, of course, that Montoya coming back from America, taking his seat at Williams next year. And just when you need some sparkling runs, he's just not been lucky. I think he's shown a lot of skill, a lot of maturity around here, but it's not been a great weekend. The last thing he needed was a first lap incident and then a retirement before he could really show any kind of skill around this, the most demanding, one of the most demanding racetracks in the world.
And you're absolutely right, Martin. Although it's happening very slowly, Coulthard is staying right behind Trulli, but Frentzen is catching Coulthard with Mika Häkkinen right behind him. So we're very soon, there is Frentzen, there is Mika Häkkinen, there is Ralf Schumacher. Here is Jean Alesi in the chromium-plated helmet. And very soon we're going to... Oh, and out goes Alexander Wurz. Well, yet when things start to go wrong for you, they go wrong all the time. And we're going to get another indication here of how good the Monaco marshals are. They are absolutely terrific. Here is a replay of Alexander Wurz at Saint-Devote, losing control of the Benetton, going nose first into the barrier and feet first out of the race as he walks back. And Wurz was down in 17th position, so that lets Mazzacane up. Here is Mazzacane, followed by Marc Genet, now 19th. Nick Heidfeld in 20th position. You're looking at Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz. They are 13th and 14th. And I'm just trying to work out, well, Nick Heidfeld is now 64 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and he is lapping about 1.6 seconds a lap slower than the Ferrari. So in another 10 laps or so, which is about where I expected it to be, the Ferrari is going to be lapping or coming up to lap Heidfeld.
Yes, well, you saw Trulli going into the new chicane down at the beginning of the harbour as Michael Schumacher was leaving the harbour around the Raskas restaurant, heading in. He's just gone past our window down the pit straight, and the other guys are still around the swimming pool. So that's the kind of... We're about 4 or 5 laps, I would guess, at Michael having to start to lap people. And then shortly after that, we should see Trulli and Coulthard in the same sort of situation. That might be a chance for Coulthard and indeed for Häkkinen to do something about the Jordans in front of them if they've got the speed.
Remember that in the last Grand Prix we had the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Mika Häkkinen made that absolutely incredible start from third position and went straight between his teammate David Coulthard in pole position and Michael Schumacher, who was second on the grid, to take the lead, although Michael Schumacher won the race. Well, here Mika Häkkinen started well down the field by his standards, because he was only fifth on the grid. He wasn't able to do anything about it at the start, and fifth is where he still is. An increasing margin behind Michael Schumacher, now nearly 25 seconds, with Schumacher continuing to lap at least half a second faster. He's now 21 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who is going well, and he needs to go well because David Coulthard is still right behind him. Häkkinen is still pressuring Frentzen. Ralf Schumacher is still hanging on there, and we're going to be waiting and waiting to see when they first come in for pit stops.
Talking about Trulli in a marathon, well, they're certainly in a marathon this afternoon. We're only just over quarter distance of the race, so tough afternoon and a long, long way to go, but it's pretty much stalemate at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I've said this before, I'll say it again, 800 horsepower, these cars. The drivers have got to be, this is Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz, followed by Jacques Villeneuve, followed by Zonta. There is Mazzacane and Genet in the two Minardis, and Pedro Diniz leading that lot is in 14th position. I was saying, these drivers are superlatively fit, and there is absolutely, you'll know better than I do, Martin, heaven knows, but there is absolutely no respite at all at Monaco.
I think they're a bunch of wussies. We used to change gear 2,700 times around here with a stick and have blood pouring out of your hand at the end of the race, so it's made pretty easy for them in that respect, but for sure the pace is very hot.
Yeah, in those days you literally physically had to move the gear lever and coordinate the engine revs and the clutch to make sure that you didn't over-rev and blow the engine up. There is no danger of that happening now. The whole thing is controlled by electronics. The driver just pulls the paddle under the steering wheel, and everything is looked after for it.
A good grip out there at the moment. I think they've gone through that phase James was talking about, where the tyres lose a bit of grip and then start coming back to the drivers as they get nearer and nearer to slick conditions. Michael Schumacher with a new fastest lap of the race. There is the Minardi.
Genet, Mark Genet.
Yeah, sensibly. If he can just let it freewheel a little bit further, he'll be well out of the racetrack there, and the marshals can quite easily recover that car through the gap in the barrier there, so it'll be covered under yellows. No safety car, no pace car needed there.
Extremely expensive jewellery shop just to the left of where he's stopped. I suppose that'll interest him very much. David Coulthard plunging down and having a look to the side of Jarno Trulli's Jordan, who calmly moves across to the right and puts any idea of David Coulthard that he might let through, which he wouldn't have done, out of his mind. And you can see that Ralf Schumacher is now in the Williams BMW 6th position, right on the tail of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren in 5th place. Here is race leader Michael Schumacher, and in the all-red look now, red Ferrari, red helmet.
The most frustrating thing about those slow corners when you're following a car very closely is the guy in front of you is guaranteed to be on the throttle a car length and a fraction ahead of you. You can't accelerate before he does, you'll run into him. So another Minardi going off at San Devot. Mazzacane, as you can see, so that'll be well and truly out of the race. Look, they've just been ripping wheels off all weekend. It's absolutely amazing how I don't know whether it's just the way they make the suspension now, but they've just been falling off so easily.
4 groove tyres, and there is Mark Genet out of the race. Now Mazzacane is out of the race, there he is. So it's an early bath for the Minardi team and their drive. So now we have got 17 cars left in the race, because De La Rosa is out, Button is out, Wurz is out, Genet is out, Mazzacane is out. 17 left, only 8 finished last year.
55 laps remaining, and I've said it before over the years, but when they hang a pit board out and you see 55 laps to go, you cannot believe that you haven't done at least half distance. It seems the early stages of this race seems so long behind the wheel, and then it somehow speeds up as you move through the afternoon.
There's 4 seconds covering 2nd to 6th at the present moment, 23 seconds 1st to 2nd. That is a mark of the skill of Michael Schumacher I've always said that if he gets into a car that is the equal of the McLaren, which he hasn't had in the past, heaven help us, because he'll be on his way, which is... And James Allen has got news from Ferrari.
Yes, it's amazing. I'm actually up on the timing wall here at Ferrari. At Monaco, I don't stand in the garages. I come with the team up onto the wall, and I'm leaning pretty much just behind Ross Brawn's shoulder. And he said very, very little to Michael throughout this race. It really is something of a walk in the park for the German. He's now approaching the area where he's got the 26 seconds that he needs in order to make a stop and be able to rejoin ahead of the second-place man. That's all he needs, with a stationary time presumed of about 8 seconds. I reckon he's going to come in sometime between like 40 and 45, and when he does, it's the same refueling team that we had at the last race at the Nürburgring. Nigel Stepney, the chief mechanic, is back here, but he's not taking part in the pit stops.
Yeah, I had a word with Nigel Stepney, the English chief mechanic of Ferrari, who took on the responsibility of handling the nozzle end of the fuel rig, a very demanding job. And he's got a bit of binding around his leg, but he's perfectly all right otherwise. He's walking well and just getting the strength back, and that's good news.
Yes, there were a lot of people in the paddock very disappointed with that situation where Michael Schumacher ran over Stepney, because there's so many of us would like to run him over, and he beat us to it. But I'm only joking, because Stepney, he can be a bit abrasive, can Nigel, but he's a good guy, does a brilliant job for the Ferrari team. But I know they've got a few people to fill in for him, and it's really nice to see him back at the races.
So, Michael Schumacher is on his 26th lap, 49 laps left, if my mental arithmetic is correct, and he's continuing to stride away with this race. It's not so much a question of who wins, provided Michael Schumacher keeps going to his 5th victory at Monaco to match that of the great Graham Hill, as who's going to be second, because things could very well change. Because we're getting to a situation now with Jarno Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi, with only about 4 seconds between them on the track. And things are going to depend on the skill and the speed and the dexterity of their pit crews. When they come in with very hot engines, stop, up go the cars, and David Coulthard and, Mika Häkkinen having a look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen will have nothing of it. So there are the 4th, 5th and 6th men together, and Rubens Barrichello still down in that 8th place. He can't do anything about Jean Alesi. This race is going to depend in the end analysis on how good the pit crews are. I have no doubt about that at all. With 17 of the 22 starters left, that is Ralf Schumacher, and here is Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello in 8th position, Fisichella in 9th position. Look back, you just missed Jenny Irvine, who is still in 10th position. I say still, somehow or other, unseen by us, he's got ahead of Johnny Herbert.
Yes, Frentzen's made a slip going through Casino Square. We haven't seen it. It showed up on the computer. He's a half a second down on the first sector of this lap. So Frentzen the first to show any signs of slight cracking, but it wasn't enough of a mistake to let Häkkinen through. But Häkkinen certainly having a good look as he went into Mirabeau, wasn't it? I don't know if we'll get a replay. I don't know if the Monegasque director here will give us a replay of that, but certainly something happened to Frentzen up in Casino.
Well, we're looking now at Jacques Villeneuve in the Honda-powered BAR. He is in 15th position, pursued by his teammate Ricardo Zonta, racing at Monaco for the first time. And back again. Now, Zonta is last but one, and there you've just seen him exiting the pool, and here is Schumacher entering and now leaving it, so the gap between the first and the last on the track is getting smaller and smaller. Michael Schumacher is going to have a traffic problem soon. Are the Ferrari people going to bring him in? Well, it's lap 27 now. The earliest I would have expected him is round about lap 35, so we're going to be seeing Schumacher deal with traffic, which could give the others the opportunity to close up.
Yeah, they've got to get through too, but I think Michael's as good as any of them through the traffic, and they certainly won't be bringing him in early. There's absolutely no need. He's 26.2 seconds in the lead, but no need to change his strategy. That's absolutely for sure.
And as I was saying earlier on, getting that pole position is so important here. Schumacher got it, he got a superb start, he's had a clear track, everybody else is fighting each other behind him. And and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is looking a bit ragged there, or was, as he came round Saint-Devote. because Mika Häkkinen is pushing extremely hard.
Yeah, Frentzen there, he must be starting to lose the rear tyres. Maybe they're going over pressure a little bit, or certainly can be going off. The rubber compound breaking down a bit, but he's now surely struggling as Johnny Herbert is in for what must be an unscheduled stop. The mechanics are not ready, and he's not on his mark, so I would imagine Johnny's got some other kind of problem than needing a new set of tyres.
I thought, and I'm going to be very careful what I say, I thought I saw a puff of smoke from the back of Herbert's car when we were looking at it earlier on, which might have been a leaking oil pipe or something more serious. But they seem to be changing the wheels and getting him out again, but anyway, he slipped right back to the rear of the field.
Yes, Barrichello and Fisichella now beginning to home in on the back of Alesi. Rubens quickest in the warm-up this morning, as I said. I think he's going to be a bit disappointed that he's not really shown. He's got clear air in front of him, but he's lapping a second a lap slower than Michael Schumacher in the sister car. So Barrichello not having a storming race.
Yeah, I think Frentzen is the man with the biggest problem at the moment. He's nearly 4 seconds behind Coulthard, who is third, as Johnny Herbert exits the pits to rejoin the race. So obviously there was not an engine problem, I hasten to say. And I say Frentzen is now 4 seconds behind Coulthard, but he's holding up Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, who are all within 3 seconds.
Now Johnny's about to be lapped, so he's going to have to yield quite quickly to the ferocious pack that's behind him. Trulli and Coulthard cleared the Herbert Jaguar as he was coming out of the pits, but Frentzen, Häkkinen and co are all going to arrive, and I think Johnny will that's Wirtz recovering himself back to the paddock, but Johnny will have to be pulling over, I think, and letting that little train through.
Into the tunnel, the leader out of it and into the Rascasse, coming through to complete his 29th lap out of 78 as Jarno Trulli, David Coulthard, Jordan and McLaren, second and third, come towards the Tabac. Now Frentzen fourth, Häkkinen fifth, Schumacher sixth, Alesi seventh, Barrichello eighth, Fisichella ninth. Johnny Herbert has been lapped, and the gap between Fisichella and Eddie Irvine, who is 10th, is some 6 seconds.
Yes, Johnny obviously virtually parked somewhere and led them all through, so very sensible, very mature, as you'd expect from JH. But, they're on their way, and it's just closing up all the time, isn't it? So Frentzen struggling with rear grip, as we know, and we're getting a little bit of a traffic jam there behind him. Coulthard now 5 seconds ahead of that little battle. You can see virtually the whole of the uphill section before they pop over the blind crest into Casino, where they are now. And Coulthard's going to be pretty fed up with the rear wing of that Jordan before he's finished the afternoon's event.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, Martin, there is sadly from his point of view absolutely nothing he can do about it, provided Jarno Trulli stays his ground, keeps cool, occupies the part of the track that David Coulthard would like to be in to get past him. It's the battle behind Frentzen with Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi that is interesting me most. We're looking at it now, and you can see that the Williams team have opted, like the rest of them, for the maximum downforce at this circuit. Downforce is everything. You've got to have grip and traction here, but Williams have gone for it a unique way by putting that high wing, and Fisichella has a look at Rubens Barrichello and fails to scramble through on the exit from the tunnel into the chicane. But nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Can you imagine being an Italian driver watching a Ferrari loom up on your nose as you're about to barge him out of the race, but the Prost going down the escape route? Is that Alesi or is that Heidfeld?
No, I think it's Alesi, in which case he's there was some sort of kerfuffle between Alesi, Barrichello and Fisichella there, although Alesi was a second or so ahead of the Ferrari. But it looks to me, yes, Rubens Barrichello is ahead of Jean Alesi. He's up into 7th position. He's got 4 seconds between himself and Ralf Schumacher. And we'll soon see whether the Ferrari can make up that ground. Making up is one thing, getting past is quite another. And Mika Häkkinen is again pushing. He's just gone through the first sector, fastest of all, and you can see him right behind Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan.
Yes, I think there's so much more pace in those McLarens than they're able to show at the moment, particularly now. In the early part of the race, I think it was nip and tuck with the Jordans, but right now, I think both McLarens have got a lot of speed in their pockets, and they just cannot use it, which is a shame for us and a shame for the race later on. Michael Schumacher now, a new fastest lap, a 1:22.8. 9.48. His lead is 28 seconds plus whatever these guys do, and that's Sauber with a bent left rear. That's obviously Diniz out of the race, and that's a tricky position to recover that car from. He's obviously hit the Saint-Devote barrier. That's effectively on the racing line. I don't think there's a crane that'll reach that far, is there, Murray? He's putting a strap.
No, I don't. I was just going to say the same thing, Martin.
He's putting a strap through the rollover hoop, look. So I just wonder if they may, if the crane will reach that far, it's easy to recover that car. But I would have thought that's stretching a little bit. You've seen the crane in action down at Saint-Devote many times, and the double wave yellows there, meaning marshals on track. I'm
wondering whether they're going to bring the safety car out, because that's a very dangerous place. I don't think there's a crane that will reach it. There is a crane at Saint-Devote, and you can see how dangerous it is for the marshals, because they come round Saint-Devote at about 70 miles an hour.
I'd rather them than me. They've got to wheel that car backwards down the hill into the range of that crane, I would guess.
Well, it hasn't made any changes to the people at the front.
Safety car standing by, it says on the computer here. Safety car standing by, which means just about nothing really, except they're obviously considering. They'll see. And remember, we've seen the bent wheel on that side, but we know it may not push very well. It's got two punctures, I think. So its underbelly will be on the deck. That may not be such an easy car to move, although the marshals here tend to lift them up and throw a little trolley underneath. At least they've got gravity working with them to help get that Sauber of Diniz's down the hill into the range of the crane. And meanwhile, Coulthard, as ever, pressing the back of
and it's Charlie Whiting who is the race director, the English race director, who's got to make the very difficult decision about whether or not to bring out the safety car. Now, this is where it's gone off. You can see the blue flags waving there, which means that someone is behind you who wants to and is entitled to get past. But Charlie